1,000 new coronavirus infections. The U.S. had more than 1 million new cases over the first 10 days of November, with infections rising at an accelerating pace. The 15 days with the highest number of new cases have all taken place over the past 18 days. In all, about 10.3 million Americans have tested positive for the virus and more than 240,000 have died. But the surge this time isn't limited to any one region. All but 8 states are in the red zone for COVID-19 cases, meaning that they had more than 100 new cases per 100,000 residents over the prior week. Public health experts warn that the situation is likely to grow much worse over the coming months, with the holidays posing the threat of super-spreading events across the country and hospitals in many places ill-equipped to handle the rising number of cases, even as medical treatment of cases has improved substantially. Experts are again worried about the strain on hospital capacity and burnout among healthcare professionals. After several weeks of rapidly rising cases, hospitals around the United States are once again overwhelmed, forcing local authorities to take new measures to cope with the pandemic. Around the country, officials scrambling to staunch the spread. Temperature and COVID-19 symptom checks, like the ones used at our schools and doctors' offices, have again proved inadequate for spotting coronavirus infections and preventing these outbreaks. Conspiracy theories and misinformation fuel mistrust in vaccines and could push levels that potential COVID-19 vaccines are taken in the United States and Britain below the rates needed to protect communities against the disease. The study of 8,000 people in the 2 countries found that fewer people would definitely take a COVID-19 vaccine than the 55% of the population scientists estimate is needed to provide the so-called herd immunity. World leaders spoke to President-elect Joe Biden today about cooperating on the coronavirus pandemic, climate change and other issues, even as President Trump's refusal to concede complicates the U.S. Post-election transition. President-elect Joe Biden announced last night that he has chosen Ron Klain as his White House chief of staff, saying that Klain has been invaluable to me over the many years that we have worked together, including during the 2009 economic downturn and the 2014 Ebola outbreak. He will lead a White House likely to be consumed by the response to the coronavirus pandemic, which continues to spread unchecked across the nation, and he'll face the challenge of working with a divided Congress that could include a Republican-led Senate. President Trump has not conceded the 2020 election to Joe Biden, but he's heading into the lame duck period of his presidency based on voting projections. He has won the closely fought presidential election in the state of Alaska, winning 3 electoral college votes and taking his tally to 217. A barrage of lawsuits and investigations led by President Trump's campaign and allies has not come close to proving a multi-state failure that would call into question his loss to President-elect Joe Biden. Donald Trump spent 10 minutes in public honoring America's war veterans yesterday, a veneer of normalcy for a White House that's frozen by a defeated president mulling his options, mostly foregoing the mechanics of governing and blocking his inevitable successor. His appearance yesterday at the annual Veterans Day commemoration at Arlington National Cemetery was his first public outing for official business in more than a week. Tropical storm Eta has dumped torrents of blustery rain on Florida's west coast as it moved over Florida after making landfall north of the heavily populated Tampa Bay area this morning. The storm slogged ashore near Cedar Key, Florida, with maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour, and the National Hurricane Center in Miami predicted Eta would then move northeast across Florida as it loses strength. Turkey took offense at a U.S. statement that said Secretary of State Mike Pompeo would promote religious freedom during an upcoming visit to Istanbul and called on Washington to focus on racism and hate crimes in the United States. The State Department said in a statement yesterday that he would travel to Istanbul to meet with the ecumenical patriarch Bartholomew I, the spiritual leader of the world's Greek Orthodox Christians. The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah said he was pleased about the humiliating downfall of President Trump, but urged regional allies to be on alert for any U.S. or Israeli folly during the rest of his term in office. Several thousand demonstrators protested in the Armenian capital as anger mounted over its prime minister's decision to cede swaths of disputed territory to Azerbaijan under a controversial peace deal. Ethiopia's military has taken over an airport amid a growing conflict in the northern Tigray region. The takeover in Humera comes as the country's prime minister denies claims that he's ignoring international calls for peace in the region. Saudi Arabia's King Salman urged world powers today to take a firm stance against its arch-rival Iran, as expectations mount that President-elect Joe Biden will seek to revive a 2015 nuclear deal with Tehran. Iran has today passed the grim milestone of 40,000 coronavirus deaths, with the latest 10,000 added in less than a month as the country struggles to contain its most widespread wave of infections yet. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy wants authorities to drop an investigation into alleged illegal financing of his 2007 campaign by the regime of late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, after a central accuser backtracked on claims that he had handed Sarkozy's team suitcases of Libyan cash. While the latest wave of COVID-19 infections in the United States and Europe has been pushing the 7-day average of daily cases to record levels through the past month, the global death trajectory, too, has seen a massive rise in the past week, going beyond the previous peak that was witnessed in early April. With merely 10% of the world's population, Europe accounts for almost a quarter of the 1.2 million COVID deaths across the globe. The United Kingdom became the fifth country in the world to record more than 50,000 coronavirus-related deaths. And Italy could be creeping towards a second national lockdown as medical professionals and doctors' unions insist the measures taken by the government are not enough to halt the alarming spread of COVID-19. Croatia today reported over 3,000 new cases, the highest daily number since the global pandemic hit the country 9 months ago. The Vatican's report into ex-cardinal, they're raising uncomfortable questions that the Holy See will have to confront going forward, chief among them what it's doing to the current and future clergy about abusing their power to sexually abuse adults. Priests, lay experts and canon lawyers alike say the Vatican needs to revisit how the Church protects its seminarians, nuns and even rank-and-file parishioners from problem bishops and cardinals who for centuries have wielded power and authority with few, if any, checks or accountability. You're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. Hong Kong's pro-democracy legislators began resigning in protest today, one day after the government ousted 4 members of their camp. And President Xi Jinping effectively neutered the most democratic institution under China's rule, sending a message to Joe Biden that no amount of pressure will prompt him to tolerate dissent against the Communist Party. Russia today said any further escalation of tensions between India and China could impact regional stability across Eurasia and reiterated the need to find a negotiated settlement to the border standoff along the line of actual control. Russia will attempt to comply with any Indian request to expedite the delivery of 5 S-400 air defense systems, with the first batch scheduled to be handed over to New Delhi by the end of 2021. The strategic partnership of India and ASEAN is based on our shared historical, geographical and cultural heritage, said Prime Minister Modi, addressing the 17th ASEAN-India Summit. And the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is one of the most significant groups in the region. Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar and Cambodia are its members. India, the US, China, Japan and Australia are its dialogue partners. India and the Philippines looking to sign an agreement on the BrahMos cruise missile during a planned summit between Prime Minister Modi and President Duterte next year, making the Southeast Asian country the first customer for the weapons system developed jointly by New Delhi and Moscow. The BJP put up a winning performance in the Bihar Assembly polls, leading the ruling NDA to obtain the majority. And India reporting almost 48,000 new cases of coronavirus infection in New Delhi, setting another daily record. Delhi government has decided to ban the community Chhat Puja, and COVID-19 cases have rapidly increased in the national capital and touched a new peak by crossing 8,000 positive cases in the past 24 hours. Delhi recording over 8,500 new cases and more than 80 deaths yesterday. Asif Basra, a Bollywood actor, has died by suicide at a private complex. He had featured in numerous hits from 2004 release of Black Friday to Jab We Met, also has had a pivotal role in Sushant Singh Rajput's Tara Kai Poche, and his last Bollywood appearance was last year in the release called The Tashkent Files. In his close to 2-decade-long career, he played Imran Hashmi's father in Once Upon a Time in Mumbai and featured a pivotal role with Hrithik Roshan in Krish 3. A sessions court in Mumbai has adjourned the hearing of Republic TV editor-in-chief Arnab Goswami and his wife's anticipatory bail plea in connection with the case registered against them for allegedly assaulting police officers. India should embrace split captaincy and put Rohit Sharma in charge of their T20 squad, according to many former cricketers. And former captain Yunus Khan will continue as the men's batting coach of Pakistan until the 2020 World Cup in 2022. 22, according to the Pakistan Cricket Board this morning. Pakistan's military announced the suspension of a number of intelligence officers and troops accused of opposition leaders last month of abducting a provincial police chief to pressure him to arrest the son-in-law of exiled former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. It was Mohammad Safdar, briefly detained after opposition parties held a rally in the port city of Karachi against Prime Minister Imran Khan. Pakistan's army, the most powerful institution that has directly ruled the country for large parts of its 7-decade history, coming under sharp attack from a coalition of opposition